Chapter 27. The Principle of Cause and Effect. What if the true power of the Hermetic teachings isn't found in using the laws, but in knowing when not to? The Hermetic principles are often approached as tools to influence life, but beneath every law lies something quieter, an awareness that determines how and whether the law is applied at all. Without awareness, the laws remain mechanical. With awareness, they become adaptive, responsive, and precise. Hermetic wisdom was never meant to turn the seeker into a controller of reality. It was meant to cultivate perception, the ability to sense when alignment is present and when restraint is wiser than action. This is why mastery begins with observation rather than force. When awareness leads, effort decreases and effectiveness increases. The laws still operate, but when awareness is present, they operate through you, not against you. Chapter 28. The Self that Observes the Mind. There comes a moment when the seeker realizes something unexpected. You are not only thinking, you are aware that you are thinking. This recognition changes everything. Thought is no longer absolute. It becomes something observed rather than obeyed. Hermetic practice does not aim to erase the self. It aims to clarify it. When awareness stands apart from identification, the mind becomes a tool instead of a master. Thoughts arise, emotions move, sensations shift. And yet something within you remains stable, present, and unchanged. This observing presence does not reject experience. It allows experience without being consumed by it. Here, identity begins to soften, not disappear, but refine. Chapter 29. Where Cause and Effect Truly Begins. Most people believe cause and effect begins with action, with decisions made, words spoken, and events that can be seen. Hermetic wisdom points somewhere quieter. Cause begins not with action, but with orientation, the direction in which attention consistently rests. Before a thought becomes a decision, and before a decision becomes behavior, there is an assumption shaping perception. What you expect, what you notice, and what you unconsciously accept as true all function as causes. Two people can face the same circumstance and experience entirely different outcomes, not because reality changed, but because their inner position did. Hermetic teaching shifts responsibility inward, not as blame, but as empowerment. When awareness refines orientation, cause and effect become visible in real time. Change does not begin where most people look. It begins closer than action, in the silent posture of attention itself. Chapter 30. Effort, Resistance, and the Illusion of Control. Many people assume progress requires force. That effort must feel heavy in order to be effective. Hermetic understanding makes a distinction. Effort is not the problem. Resistance is. When attention is rigid, effort becomes exhausting. When attention is flexible, effort becomes precise. This is why two people can work equally hard and experience very different results. One feels drained, the other feels engaged. The difference is not strength, but alignment. Hermetic practice does not reject action. It rejects unnecessary tension. Action guided by awareness carries direction without strain. When you stop gripping outcomes, effort transforms, not into passivity, but into efficiency, doing what is needed and no more. Chapter 31. Will, Direction, and Inner Coherence. Willpower is often misunderstood as force, as the ability to push through resistance and override inner hesitation. Hermetic wisdom describes will differently. True will is direction without conflict. When the inner world is fragmented, effort feels heavy. When intention is coherent, movement feels natural. Most inner struggle comes from opposing impulses pulling attention in different directions. One part seeks change, another seeks safety. Will alone cannot resolve this. Awareness can. When attention honestly observes inner conflict, coherence begins to emerge. A unified will does not require constant motivation. It acts because resistance is absent. This is the foundation of sustained progress, not pressure, not intensity, but inner alignment. Chapter 32. Identity without rigidity. Most people think identity is something fixed, a personality to defend, a story to maintain. Hermetic understanding sees identity differently. Identity is not a solid object, but a pattern, shaped by attention, habit, and awareness over time. When awareness deepens, identity becomes flexible without becoming unstable. You no longer cling to who you were, nor fear who you might become. This flexibility is not weakness, it is resilience. A rigid identity fractures under pressure, while a flexible one adapts without losing coherence. The initiate learns to inhabit roles without being consumed by them. Thoughts, emotions, and behaviors are experienced, not mistaken for the self. Here, identity becomes a tool rather than a cage. You remain present, responsive, and grounded, even as circumstances change. Chapter 33. Emotion as information. Emotion is often treated as an obstacle, something to suppress, control, or escape. Hermetic wisdom treats emotion as information, a signal indicating alignment or misalignment within the inner system. Emotions arise before conscious thought catches up. They reveal tensions, attachments, and assumptions operating beneath awareness. When emotion is resisted, it intensifies. When it is observed, it clarifies. Awareness transforms emotion from disturbance into guidance. This does not mean indulging every feeling. It means listening without being ruled by it. In this way, emotion becomes a teacher, not an enemy, but a messenger pointing toward necessary adjustment. Chapter 34. Polarity and inner balance. Life appears divided into opposites: pleasure and pain, confidence and doubt, strength and vulnerability. Hermetic insight reveals that these are not separate forces, but degrees along a single spectrum. Polarity exists within unity. Balance does not come from eliminating one side. It comes from understanding the relationship between both. When awareness is present, extremes soften naturally. You move along the spectrum without becoming trapped at either end. This understanding dissolves inner conflict. You no longer fight opposing states. You integrate them. Here, balance becomes dynamic rather than rigid. Stability emerges not from control, but from comprehension. Chapter 35. Rhythm, cycles, and stability. Everything moves in cycles. Energy rises and falls. Focus sharpens and fades. Motivation flows and recedes. Hermetic wisdom does not seek to escape rhythm. It seeks to understand it. Instability arises when rhythm is resisted. Stability arises when cycles are anticipated and respected. The initiate learns to act in harmony with natural phases, to push when energy supports movement, and to rest when restoration is required. This awareness prevents burnout and discouragement. Temporary decline is no longer mistaken for failure. Rhythm becomes an ally. Stability becomes sustainable rather than forced. Chapter 36. Power without force. Many associate power with dominance, with control, pressure, and assertion. Hermetic understanding defines power differently. Power is the capacity to influence without resistance. Force creates opposition. Awareness creates cooperation. When action arises from clarity, it encounters less friction. Outcomes align more easily, not because reality is obeying, but because conflict has been removed. This form of power is quiet. It does not announce itself. It expresses itself through timing, precision, and restraint. Here, influence becomes natural. Power flows through alignment, not effort. Chapter 37. Integration and the Hermetic Way of Living. Understanding alone is incomplete. Hermetic wisdom was never meant to remain theoretical. Integration is where insight becomes embodied, where awareness informs daily action, decision, and response. This does not require perfection. It requires consistency. Small, conscious adjustments compound over time. Living hermetically means observing before reacting, aligning before acting, learning continuously from experience. Here, the teachings cease to be concepts. They become a way of living, fluid, responsive, and grounded in awareness. This is not an end point. It is a way forward. Chapter 38. The Hermetic Perspective. At a certain point on this path, seeking begins to quiet. Not because questions disappear, but because perception changes. Hermetic understanding does not give final answers. It changes how answers are approached. You no longer search for certainty in events, outcomes, or explanations. You learn to recognize patterns in awareness itself. Throughout this work, the focus has never been control. It has been clarity, clarity about thought, clarity about emotion, clarity about action and intention. When clarity is present, complexity simplifies. Life does not become predictable, but it becomes intelligible. The Hermetic perspective does not separate inner and outer worlds. It recognizes them as reflections of the same movement. What you attend to shapes how you experience reality. How you respond shapes what continues. This is not a belief. It is something observed. With time, effort gives way to precision. Resistance gives way to responsiveness. You stop forcing meaning onto experience and begin allowing meaning to emerge. From this perspective, growth is no longer dramatic. It is subtle, consistent, and sustainable. There is less urgency to change everything, more attention to what is already present. This is not withdrawal from life. It is deeper participation in it. To live with Hermetic awareness is not to live above the world, but to meet it with understanding rather than reaction. You still act. You still choose. You still experience uncertainty. But you are no longer lost inside those movements. This is not mastery in the sense of dominance. It is mastery in the sense of relationship. A relationship with thought, with emotion, with circumstance. Here, the teachings no longer stand apart from life. They dissolve into it. And that is where this work was always pointing. Not toward an end, but toward a way of seeing. That continues long after the final chapter. If this book offered clarity, perspective, or even a moment of stillness, you're welcome to support the channel by liking or subscribing. And if you feel inclined, you're also welcome to leave a comment about what resonated with you. I do read them. Thank you for listening.